Top topic today. Message from the streets. I'm gonna speak on a very controversial topic, but something that can't be avoided. We see it, experience it, feel it every day, and that is the psychopathic ideology of so-called white supremacy that is exercised by so-called white nationalists. But it's also a disease of the mind that so-called black people and other ethnic synergies, when they assimilate into this social construct here in the United States, they have uh, posits white supremacy in their thought process. That's right. Even so-called black people have the ideology and the corrupt consciousness of view when dealing with their own people and people of other nationalities besides European Caucasians, um, as a perspective of white supremacy. This infection of the mind has made some so-called black people absolutely bat boo boo crazy. And, when you look at their stance and their ideologies and their positioning, this is the concept of what they identified in the old days as an Oreo. You black on the outside and you're white on the inside. This is a part of the conditioning and the colonization of the mind and the programming with ideologies that people have grabbed out of the ethers and inserted it into their personality. And in the process, they believe within the depths of their being that this perspective of thought is correct. And, I got these three gentlemen behind me. They are examples of many of the mindsets of so-called African American, Black Americans, so-called Blacks right now, today in 2026. And this mindset of self-hatred is a reflection of how you operate. You're ready to go and, go to white man heaven, like Uncle Ruckus said. You get a position in the Supreme Court, like the gentleman right behind me, and you disassociate yourself with the experience that got you there. And then there's old Steven. Boss, you got that jigger up in the big house? This is how many so-called blacks operate right now today unconsciously when they make alliances with certain systems that is against the best of their interests. And when I'm talking about the systems, I'm talking about the Republicans and the Democrats. But we can see for surely that today in 2026, after Barry Good Goldwater simulated into the Senate in 64, that today's Republicans are yesterday's Dixiecrats. And many so-called blacks make alliances with the ideology of the Ku Klux Klan, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, when they make an alliance with the Republican Party of the day. And, they keep on saying right now, oh, the Democrats is the party of slavery. The Democrats is the party of the Ku Klux Klan. But who is the party of the Ku Klux Klan today? There it is, man. Only thing they did was role reversal. They switched uniforms. They got traded over to the other team, or they went and applied and became the other team. Because in the 1960s, when the Democratic Party started advocating for civil rights, this is when a lot of the Dixiecrats, the people down south that had accumulated generational wealth from the blood, the sweat, and the tears of so-called blacks, they transferred over to the Republican or the right wing of today. And it is evident in the stances that has been taken against so-called melanated people. When we take a look at what this current president has advocated and used his executive power as a weapon against so-called black, he has weaponized his executive powers, and he has done these things, according to some sources, as the agenda of 2025, advocated by the Heritage Foundation. People don't want to believe because they don't read. They don't want to know, not believe, but they don't want to know because they are fascinated with the ideology of a fallen star. And this is what the current president represent from his TV shows and his failed businesses and all that. They looking at his stardom. He's a businessman. Yeah, he's a businessman. He's the president of a corporation, but guess what? He's not a CEO. He's not an owner. He is a worker, and he is working to make the lives miserable for not just so-called blacks, but whites. And that's what this whole segment is about the results of white supremacy in the white community, so-called white community. And I'm a firm believer there's no such thing as white people or black people. It's melanin recessive and melanin recessive. So in the melanin recessive community, they had been fed psychological enchantment, and they told them, you're white, so you're pure, you're clean, you're above everything, you don't have, you without blemish, you without stain. But they looking at their outer, and which is not white, but more of a pale type of color. I'm not a recessive of a color, mutated vessel. But what they don't realize, they may think that they are white on the outside, but what are you in the inside? Darkness, hatred, racism, segregation, superiority complex, no empathy for people that are in conditions that you and your forefathers have created. And I'm not never ever talking about also called Europeans or Caucasians, because that is just ignorance. And I'm not never ever talking about all so-called blacks when I identify the characteristic with these three gentlemen behind me. But if the shoe fits, lace it up. Don't be mad at me or people that have thought processes as similar as I do, because we read, we study, and we research, and we refuse to drink that Trump juice. See what I'm saying? You can drink the Trump juice. You can hate the Democrats. That's cool. I'm not down with the Democrats, but I'm not going to support the Republicans. You know why? Because I read and I study, and I know that I don't had to be forced to the left or the right. I could take a stance and I could be neutral and still have some conservative views and still have some liberal views, as long as it's in the context of my understanding. When you get down with the get down and you join the political Crips or the political Bloods, you are taken away in your thought process and your emotions, and you're swung to the left or you're swung to the right, and you are extremist or to the left, and you are a fanatic to the right. And this is where the situation of um, psychological illnesses have developed, and you don't like people because they don't agree with your perspective. I don't care what people agree to or what they don't agree to. What I bring to the table is what I agree to, and that's the most important thing. What I'm standing on, what I put my life on the table for. See what I'm saying? I'm not gonna let somebody else that have lesser studies and haven't done any critical thinking direct the direction that I'm going in. That's why I have a brain, and I don't support the left or the right, because I can see the reality that neither one of these wings of this wicked buzzard of a system have any goodwill towards melanated people, in the sense that we know that it's our just due for being the burden bearers of this society. The Asians come over, they look at so-called black sideways. The Latinos, and when I say the Asian, I'm not talking about all of them. And I say the Latinos, not all of them, but there are individuals in these groups that get the European, Caucasian, white supremacist ideology, and for some reason, they start to exercise their disdain for so-called blacks. Maybe because white supremacy is like a virus and it poisons your mind, and it happens over time. You keep on watching the TV, you keep on listening to the news, and then your mind develop an idea. Oh, those melanated people, those people in the projects, in the ghettos, those people out there rapping, those people out here killing one another, and you never look at why or how did this come about. You look at the end results, and then you miss the actual criminal, the villain of the whole reality of what has poisoned your mind. And I'm gonna leave you with that. Once again, white supremacy is a dis-ease of the mind, and not only so-called white, European, Caucasian people have been affected by it, but so-called blacks have been affected by the ideology of white supremacy. in the sense where they go against the best of their interests, Latinos going against the best of their interests, Asians going the best of their for the best of their interests. This is a psychological illness and it's a disease. And you know, when people have diseases, they can't function properly. And it's also some of it's self-inflicted. People intoxicated. They keep on drinking the juice or they keep on smoking it up and their minds have been infiltrated. You know, they have let down their guards and they have been taken away with false information that they cannot prove, that they do not have any substantial evidence on. They can't bring the proof, the proof, the burden of proof to the forefront, but they still yapping, quacking. And that's cool because this is America and you have the constitutional right for now to say what you want to say. Stand for what you want to stand for. Represent what you want to represent. I'm just advising all so-called sincere human beings or spiritual beings having this human experience. Sometimes you have to reprogram your mind. Sometimes you have to go back and look at things that you have been indoctrinated with, especially when it's lies, because white supremacy is a lie. It's a virus on the mind, and you got to reevaluate. And you got to look at things through the spectrum of your own life experiences. And then, if you have bad experiences, everybody had bad experiences. You're not the number one victim of the whole planet. And I'm talking about so-called blacks alike. We're not the only ones that had experiences. But one thing we're saying is that we want to be acknowledged for what we went through. And, if there is a debt to be paid, we want to be compensated before that debt. Because everybody else has been compensated. Everybody else has been giving. But you just keep on telling us, wait. That's what's up with the Democratic Party. But the Republicans, they letting you know straight up. They say when Ronald Reagan came in, the whole jump ship from Goodwater, the so-called Jew, to Reagan, this is when the Republican Party went through a transformation process. And a lot of people said, well, Lincoln was a Republican, Lincoln was a part of the Whig Party before he came to the Republican Party. And at that time, the Republican Party, under true conservatism, was nothing like the conservative party of the day. I bring this message in love. I bring this message in truth. I bring this message in a sound mind. Have a blessed day on purpose, with purpose, and stop drinking that juice. Oneness.